Welcome to the Lost in Transit podcast. I'm your host, Spud Rochong. So this week on the podcast, I want to talk about documenting your trips. All week, I've been trying to catch up on my photo blog, which basically is just a place for me to write a little blurb about my trip and dump a shitload of photos on it. It's pretty simple, but I've been so far behind that I'm still working on trips from last year, and it's March. So that being said, as I'm going through all these things and trying to remember kind of some of the main details and things like that, I'm realizing that I've forgot a lot from a lot of these trips. And when I started, I was reaching back to like February of last year. I've never claimed to be the best writer, so I don't really write a lot. But important details, I'd completely forgotten until I was flipping through photos and it was kind of reminding me of things. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. How do you document your trips? Do you take photos? Do you write about them? Do you blog about them? Do you vlog about them? There's so many different ways nowadays to document your trip. And with the oversaturation of the documentation of everyone's lives, it might sound a little cliche, but I think when you travel, it's a great thing to actually document things. Maybe on your downtime, not so much, but when important things are happening, or I do all sorts of miscellaneous documenting, as I'm saying. The main one is photography. As I was writing a little bit and digging through photos of a trip my brother had taken out to Washington and Oregon, I had completely confused two whole separate days until I was flipping through the photos and realized that I had done that. So it's a big part of why I think it's good to document your trips. I mean, obviously, when I was a kid, your family would bust out the photo albums from a trip they'd taken and they just kind of sit in a drawer. Now, there's so many different ways for people to see what it is that you're doing at that exact time. And Instagram is a prime example. Instagram is a great place to showcase some of the best documented moments of your trip. Or you just wait and do it when you get home. I tend to try, when I'm on a trip, I try and post one photo from the day. But that's just me. It's kind of silly, I know. But I like it. I like to show people where I am. I like to tell people what I'm doing. It kind of lets them know that things are okay. I also have a very, very, very worrisome mother who checks those things. So it helps with the frantic phone calls when you're in the middle of nowhere. So another way is to write. It doesn't have to necessarily be a blog. I have tried this many times and I always, always, always forget to write at the end of the day. I have probably half a dozen notebooks with like 2 or 3 pages of stuff written in them from trips. I have notes in my phone from trips like dating back 10 years ago. It's a good way to remember. It's just a good way to remember things. And I feel like when you write, you can kind of tell more about how you were feeling because you can't really tell that from a photo. I think that was one of the things that I remember hearing Paul Theroux talk about is how writing, like just journaling your day, helps you remember what you've done throughout the trip. And it's cool to find these things. So I said that I have these notes in my phone from a trip, in 2012, I guess. It's stupid stuff like notes from trip to Singapore. Didn't know I needed an ongoing flight delayed an hour. Hostel I had scheduled had closed and I was told it was 24-hour reception. Sunday, January 22nd, 2012, checking into a seedy Indian hotel called 3D Harmony Hostel. Just a few storefronts from the hotel I checked in. The guy at the desk was blasting ear-piercing volume Tupac, and I was sharing a room with 4 people. However, one of them was sleeping on the floor. I went to Chinatown with Jason and met Brandon for coffee. Checked out the mall and the train to Geelong. Had dinner, checked out the sketchy parts of town, came back to the hostel. Super simple. Super, just kind of outline your day. It's funny because I had forgotten about this hostel in general. Even when I was in Singapore the other day and I walked by the hotel I had stayed at that was on the corner near the hostel, I totally spaced on the hostel in general. and like I say in there, it was one of those situations you walk in and he was blasting Tupac so loud you almost didn't want to be in the room. But I need a bed, and they had one. So it's a nice thing to write. It's even more funny to just think about. You know what I mean? Once you read something that you've written, it jogs your memory a little bit, and it helps you remember things that you had otherwise forgotten. Something I don't do is take video, but in the day and age of the internet, and with vlogs and travel videos being the fucking hype, you can for sure get away with documenting your whole trip or vlogging your whole trip and posting about it daily. Or, it gives you something to look back on and watch and show your friends, and you can show the exciting parts of your day. But again, it's not necessarily going to show the emotion as much that you're feeling inside as writing, unless you literally just describing how you're feeling. And these are things that I think are important. I think that this is a big part of traveling, is the emotions we feel and how we feel connected or disconnected to a place we're in. I know that I have to get better at writing about it because, well, A, I have notebooks for days that need to be written in, and B, it's just kind of more important to me now than it has ever been, with having a partner who travels with me and it being something that we can share and remember in the future, more so than just, oh, hey babe, remember this photo? Remember this place? It was great. We can both take 5-10 minutes and write about our day and look back on it later. So how do you feel about this? How do you feel about writing? How do you feel about taking photos? I'd like to hear your thoughts on the whole thing, especially those of you who travel frequently. What is one of the things that you do to help you remember your trip? Feel free to email me at lostintransitpc@gmail.com. Send me a DM on Instagram. It's Lost in Transit Podcast. Also give that a follow if you're down. Send me a message on Facebook, facebook.com/LostInTransitPC. It's also Lost in Transit PC on Twitter. I would also like to hear anyone that inspires you, the listener, that I should try and interview on the show. I'm trying to bring back the interviews, and currently I've got 3 weeks in Europe on tour, so it's going to be a few more of these sort of podcasts before I get to the interviews, but again, they will be coming back. Thank you for listening. Get lost.